the lack of oxygen at the tissue level, whereas hypoxemia is the lack of oxygen in the blood. And usually hypoxemia is measured with a value of PaO2 less than 60 mmHg. So the purpose of oxygen therapy is to correct hypoxemia. The main indications which are documented of hypoxemia of less than 60 mmHg PaO2 or an SaO2 of less than 90%. Now, what are the indications for oxygen therapy? There are various. Whether there is increased oxygen consumption, which could be convulsions, exercise, shivering, pyraxia in a patient, reduced alveolar ventilation, which could be any central causes, any neuromuscular causes, reduced respiratory effort, narcotic abuse, barometric pressures are high, as in high altitude sickness. There is a VQ mismatch, which you may see in abnormally pulmonary shunts, pulmonary embolism, various congenital cardiac diseases, anatomical shunts seen in these cases, decreased perfusion, particularly where there is thrombosis, low hemoglobin levels, anemia, CO poisoning. These are some of the indications for oxygen therapy. The oxygen therapy is mostly classified into orthobaric or hyperbaric. At atmospheric pressure 1 is the orthobaric and more than that is hyperbaric. Now the various techniques of oxygen administration. There are various classifications for these oxygen devices. Basis of the design, they are divided into low flow systems, reservoir systems, high flow or enclosure systems. Or they can be performance based, where there is a fixed flow of oxygen or there is a variable flow of oxygen. Now low flow devices which have a variable performance include the common devices which you use day to day, like the nasal cannula, the nasal catheters and the transcranial catheters, very infrequently used. The reservoir system is reservoir cannulas, simple face masks, partial rebreathing and non-rebreathing masks, and there are some tracheostomy masks also. The high flow or the fixed performance devices include venti masks and aerosol masks. Now the oxygen delivery systems can be classified into normobaric, hyperbaric. Normobaric again into low, medium and high dependency systems, and then the low dependency systems further classified into variable performance and fixed performance oxygen delivery systems. Now what is low, medium and high dependency? Low dependency is when we are just giving supplemental oxygen alone to a patient, which is enough to correct the hypoxia of the patient. The patient in these cases is spontaneously breathing. The medium dependency usually means where we need to give assistance just more than oxygen. It is probably a little bit of a CPAP, where the spontaneous breathing requires some assistance. And then the high dependency, where the supplemental oxygen along with more support is required for the patients, like in NIPPV or when it is invasive ventilation, the IPPV. Now, how do we choose the oxygen device or the oxygen delivery system? It depends on various factors. The degree of hypoxemia the patient has, how much precision of the delivery you are requiring, which suits the patient most. The patient should be comfortable in the device that we are giving, otherwise there is uncooperation or the patient doesn't tolerate the device well. And of course, cost. Now the low dependency systems, we'll start with that. The low flow systems can be classified into again nasal cannula, simple mask, reservoir mask. The low flow oxygen delivery systems, they cannot deliver a stable FiO2. There is always a variation in the oxygen that reaches the patient. Whereas the high flow devices, they usually maintain a constant FiO2. The flows are usually between 6 to 8 liters in a low flow system, whereas the fixed flow systems have a very high oxygen flow rate ranging from 20 to 40 to up to 50. The mixture of oxygen and room air is there in low flow systems, whereas in high flow systems this can be regulated very strictly. There is shallow breathing, so less entrainment of room air happens, and high FiO2s are difficult to achieve. In these fixed variable systems, we can regulate the oxygen we are giving to the patient. The low flow systems usually include the nasal cannulae, the oxygen mask, whereas here we include the jet mixing venturi masks, the reservoir nebulizers and the oxygen blenders, which have become very popular from COVID and onwards. Now the common low flow devices, we will talk about them as we proceed further. So the nasal cannula, most common, we all use it day and night in our services. It contains 2 nasal prongs. It has got a attachment and a restraining band. The best part about the nasal cannula is it is very well tolerated by most patients. It consists of two soft prongs attached to an oxygen supply tubing. The flow rate usually is between 2 to 4 liters in these, and the FiO2s of about 0.3, 0.4 can be achieved by these. The FiO2s can be calculated based on the flows that we're giving, 20% plus about 4% more for each liter of oxygen that is added. The nasal cannulas usually are not able to supply or provide you with more than 0.5 or 0.6 of FiO2. The nasopharynx in this case acts as a reservoir. There are some patients who tend to breathe even through the mouth. Then in these cases, even if you have applied the nasal cannula, the nasopharynx acts as a venturi, and for them also the oxygen in the nasal cannulas do work. It is available in different sizes and different forms and is well tolerated by the patients. The advantages again, long-term therapy is good, it is lightweight and comfortable, it is cheap, humidification is generally not required, and the disadvantages, we cannot provide higher FiO2. In higher flows, there can be nasal crusting, irritation to some patients. Now the nasal catheter. Honestly speaking, we have never used the nasal catheter, but it was there. So it is generally a soft tubing which is inserted through the nose and reaches up to the nasopharynx. It is a single human catheter. The oxygen flows are usually between 2 to 3 liters per minute, and the FiO2 achieved is about 35 to 40. The drawbacks are it can cause gastric insufflation because it reaches quite deep into the nasopharynx. It needs to be pulled out and cleared. In cases of some nasal trauma, it can cause emphysema.
Simple face mask.
It is a transparent mask provided with the side holes. The usual capacity of a reservoir capacity is about 100 to 250 ml. Different oxygen flow rates can be given, but they are variable and unpredictable. The rebreathing of CO2 can occur through this face mask if the oxygen is less than 2 liters and more than 4 liters or so is required for maintaining a constant flow. The FiO2s achieved by this are about 0.5, 0.6 again, and flow rates greater than 8 liters per minute do not increase the FiO2. Advantages again, less expensive, easily available, good for mouth breathers. Disadvantages is causes claustrophobia in some, difficult in eating, it is uncomfortable, requires a tight seal, and of course there is a chance of rebreathing. Then the partial rebreathing mask. The partial rebreathing masks are usually the ones which have a bag attached to the similar face mask, and the bag has a capacity of 600 to 1 liter. There are no valves in this. The mechanics is that the inspired air, when we are inspiring, the first 1/3 of the gas, which is in the anatomical dead space, is taken in through the oxygen inhale. The expired gas is the oxygen plus the last 2/3 of the gas that escapes through the pores. Thus, there is some rebreathing. There are 3 reservoir systems which are there when we are using this partially rebreathing mask. One is the anatomic reservoir, which is the nose and the nasopharynx and the oropharynx, which has a capacity of about 50 ml. Then the face mask, which has a capacity of about 100 to 200 ml, and the reservoir having a capacity of about 600 ml to 1 liter depending on the size. The partial rebreathing provides an FiO2 of 0.6 to 0.8. A minimum of 8 liters of flow is required to enter the mask to remove the exhaled CO2 and refill the oxygen reservoir. The flow rates must be sufficient to keep the bag at least 1/3 to half inflated at all times. So this diagram actually shows how the inspired and the expired gases kind of mix. So oxygen flow rates achieved by this is at 6 liters about 0.6, at 7.7, and even if you go on further increasing beyond 8, the FiO2 remains to 0.8. Now the non-rebreathing. The non-rebreathing is different from the rebreathing mask. Is the expired gases, there is only one-way valve, so the gases expire from that one-way valve, and there is no mixing of the inspired and the expired gases because there is a valve between the reservoir bag and the inlet. It is provided by one-way valves between the mask and the bag and also at the exhalation ports. The FiO2 of 95% can be achieved with an oxygen flow rate of 10 to 15 liters per minute. So there are higher oxygen supply rates are required for this. It is desirable
One
in
breathing
cases
mask.
where rebreathing of CO2 would be detrimental, or patients, for example, if they are patients of head injury, the patients in viral pneumonia requiring very high oxygen requirements. The best research will be achieved by adequate flow rate such that the reservoir bag empties by no more than a third during inspiration, and best seal is possible between the mask and the face. There should not be any leakage. The advantages: the highest possible FiO2 can be achieved by non-invasive means. It is very easy and the patients tolerate it very well. It is suitable for spontaneously breathing patients with severe hypoxia. The disadvantages: it is relatively more expensive. Then the tight seal sometimes is very difficult to maintain because the patients are thirsty, they want to eat something, sometimes they feel claustrophobic, so the seal keeps on getting broken, and that is when the FiO2s are difficult to maintain. And if there is a malfunction of the mask, then sometimes CO2 buildup can happen. So these are the basic oxygen. Nasal cannula can 1 to 6 liters per minute of oxygen can be given, and the FiO2s we achieve a 0.24 to 0.44. In a transtracheal catheter, same as nasal cannula. Oxygen mask at 5 to 6 liters, we achieve a FiO2 of 0.4, 6 to 7.5, and 7 to 8.6. In reservoir bag, we achieve with 0.6 to 0.9. In a non-rebreathing, we can achieve up to 100% FiO2. And Venturi mask high flow, we achieve up to 0.24 to 0.5 of FiO2 with 3 to 15 liters of oxygen flow. Now the high flow or the fixed performance systems. These are the Venturi masks, and it is based on the Venturi modification of the Bernoulli system. In this, what happens is there is a narrow inlet in the mask. Through that narrow inlet, a very high flow of oxygen enters into the airway, the nose or the mouth, and when this oxygen is passing through this narrow inlet, there is a low pressure system created outside that inlet. So from that outside inlet, there is entrainment of the given air, which happens, and that is how the fixed delivery of oxygen is maintained. A rapid velocity of gas, so the Bernoulli principle, I will read that out to you. A rapid velocity of gas existing from a restricted orifice will create a subatmospheric lateral pressure, resulting in atmospheric air being entrained into the mainstream. I hope you get the principle of the Venturi mask.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are various types of Venturi masks. The jet mixing Venturi masks or the air entrainment masks. They deliver fixed concentration of oxygen. The size of the constriction determines the final concentration of oxygen for a given gas flow. A forward flow of inspired gases increases the lateral pressure as explained, and by that the entrainment of air occurs. The smaller the orifice, the greater the negative pressure generated and the lower the FiO2. So these Venturi masks are basically color coded, and these are the various color codings, and these color codings provide you with how much oxygen or percentage of FiO2 you will achieve by applying these various Venturi masks. So because of the high fresh gas flow rate, the exhaled gases are rapidly flushed out from the mask via these holes, and therefore there is no rebreathing occurring in these. These masks are recommended when fixed oxygen concentration is desired for the patients and whose ventilation is dependent on their own hypoxic drive. So these high flow devices are usually needed in severely hypoxic patients whose oxygen drive or demand is so high that we are not able to meet with the low flow systems. So these high flow systems deliver oxygen at the level of 20 to 40 liters per minute, and that is how they combat the hypoxic drive of the patient. And this is the mask the tracheostomy mask by which Venturi devices can be attached. So these are some of the images, adjustable Venturi device. So the advantages, again, as I told you, fine control of FiO2. They are fixed and reliable. High flow comes from the air, saving the oxygen cost. Can be used in low flow FiO2 also, and it helps in deciding whether the oxygen requirement is increasing or decreasing for a patient, which is very important. The disadvantages: it is uncomfortable, it is relatively more expensive, and it cannot deliver very high FiO2. Now comes the blending system. The blending systems or the high flow nasal cannulas that we have been using quite frequently. We particularly started using it more in the COVID and the post-COVID era viral pneumonias. So when there is a high concentration of oxygen that is required with a very high flow rate, then this system comes into play. And there is a separate pressurizing mixture or a device where the oxygen comes at a high flow. There is a pressurized chamber which mixes the oxygen and the air. The blending occurs, and these blended gases are then given to the patient. It can deliver fully convection gases with the inbuilt humidifiers that they have at 60 liters per minute at fixed FiO2s. These systems have a use of a built-in flow generator and an oxygen blender that generates inspired gases flow at a preset FiO2. A heated passover type of humidifier enables optimal humidification. So there is warm, nicely humidified gas that reaches a patient, so the patient doesn't become uncomfortable even at 60 liters flow rate also. The flow rates delivered by HFNC exceed the peak inspiratory flow rates of the patients who are dyspneic. So this is one of the settings. This is how the HFNC look. I'm sure that all of you must be aware and have been using it. So this is the gas source. There is a pressure release valve, 45 centimeters of H2. This is the humidifier, and then through that, after passing through the humidifier, they reach the nasal interface. It minimizes the atmospheric air entrainment and enables a constant and a very predictable FiO2. The most devices allow a maximum gas flow rate of about 60 liters per minute and a fixed FiO2 ranging from 0.2 to 0.1. The high gas flow results in flushing out of CO2 from the nasopharynx, with less rebreathing from the dead space, and there is an improved alveolar ventilation. The HFNC also generates a nice positive pressure, which generates a low level of PEEP in the patient. The mean airway pressures can range anywhere from 3.5 to up to 5, and some tests have described it up to 7 mmHg of PEEP also. Provided there is a high flow rate and the patients tend to keep the mouth closed as much as possible. So the HFNC, there is an index which is related to HFNC, which tells us or predicts whether the patient will continue to tolerate the HFNC or will probably end up on a ventilator. Can somebody tell me what is the index? So what happens in the ROX index? What are the 2 or 3 parameters we use in the ROX index? So it is the FiO2, the patient saturation and the respiratory rate, and then it tells you there is a low predictability, there is an intermediate predictability or a higher predictability for a patient to have a failure of HFNC and to go on the ventilator. Now the enclosure systems. These I'm just introducing because you might be asked. This is the oxygen tent hold-out incubator, usually used in pediatric patients. Oxygen tent consists of a, I can't read it. It's a complicated, it's made of a canopy placed over the patient's head. The FiO2 is 40 to 50%, and the flow rates are about 12 to 15 liters per minute. It is cool, comfortable, the child tolerates it well. The disadvantage is it's expensive, cumbersome, and difficult to clean, and of course limits the patient's mobility. The oxygen hood, again used in pediatric patients, delivers FiO2 from 21 to 100%, and the minimum flow of more than 7 liters per minute is required. These are incubators, again used in pediatric patients. Then the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The hyperbaric oxygen therapy, the patient breathes 100% oxygen at a pressure which is greater than the atmospheric pressure of 1. The physiological effects of hyperbaric oxygen therapy include the increased blood oxygen consumption, constriction by inhibition of nitric oxide. It has a certain antibacterial action described in various studies, particularly against anaerobic bacteria. There is inhibition of endothelial neutrophil addition in the injured tissue, and there is a bubble reduction. The conditions or the indications where SBOT may be required is decompression sickness, air embolism, carbon monoxide poisoning, thermal burns, severe crush injuries, acute arterial insufficiency, clostridial gangrene, necrotizing soft tissue infections, or ischemic skin condition. Various chronic conditions include radiation necrosis, some diabetic wounds, refractory osteomyelitis, and actinomycosis. The contraindication to SBOT is absolute is untreated tension pneumothorax, The various problems that we can face with HVOT is radiotrauma, which includes ear or sinus trauma, tympanic membrane rupture, pneumothorax. Fire hazards are there, severe claustrophobia, sudden decompression is there, compression of the medical team and equipment, injuries, problems of communication are there, and refractory pharmacology of drug. Now we come to the long-term oxygen delivery system. Since we are placed in ICUs, we do send our patients home on long-term oxygen delivery systems, which are usually oxygen concentrators. We tell the patients often to use oxygen concentrators at home, but many a times we have not even seen them or do not know the basis on which they work. So the oxygen concentrator is basically a machine which entrains the room air and compresses it to release fresh oxygen to the patient. The oxygen concentrators usually use compressed gas or liquid oxygen. The delivery devices for LTOT include most of the low flow devices. It is designed to conserve the home oxygen by providing efficiency of oxygen delivery. Most of the time the LTOT delivery devices are either the nasal cannula or the reservoir nasal cannula or electronic conserving devices like the pulse oximeters. This is an example of a reservoir nasal cannula, a transtracheal catheter. A transtracheal catheter also, its advantages are it can reduce the total oxygen usage by 50 to 75%. There is lack of nasal safety to the patient and the patients, and the infrequency of catheter displacement in this. The disadvantage is infection. It often gets obstructed by the mucous walls, and there is catheter breakage. Now, how do we choose the device for oxygen delivery? There are 3 P's to this: the purpose, the patient, and the performance. The goal is to match the performance characteristics of the equipment to both the objectives of the therapy, that is the purpose, and the patient's special needs. We all know that the purpose is to improve the arterial hypoxemia. The factors that lead us to the selection of a device are: what is the severity and cause of the hypoxemia, what age group is the patient in, the degree of consciousness or alertness of a patient, the presence or absence of a tracheal airway in the patient, the stability of minute ventilation, the mouth breathing versus the nose breathing. These are some of the factors we need to keep in mind before we advise the device. So, for a low FiO2, where we are requiring FiO2 less than 35%, air entrainment or venturi masks are good for a fixed delivery system. For a variable delivery system, it can be a nasal cannula, a nasal catheter, or a transtracheal catheter, depending on the access of the patient. For a medium FiO2 level of 35 to 60%, we again go for venturi mask or a simple oxygen mask. A blending system can also be used in a fixed delivery system. For high FiO2s greater than 60%, the blending systems or the HFNC are required if we are using a fixed delivery system, whereas a partial or a non-rebreather mask for a variable delivery system. Now, what is the dark side of oxygen therapy? Pulmonary oxygen toxicity, CNS toxicity, retinopathy of prematurity, depression of ventilation, absorption atelectasis, and fire hazards are some of the side effects of prolonged or high oxygen therapy. The pulmonary toxicity or the Lorentz-Smith effect. It occurs between 0.7 to 3 atmospheres, and 2 factors are responsible for this effect, which is the oxygen and the exposure time. The free radicals are delivered when we are giving the patients long-term oxygen therapy at high rates, which can lead to pulmonary fibrosis and high pulmonary pressures. Then another is the CNS toxicity or the Fallberg effect. It occurs again at oxygen at pressures greater than 1 atmosphere. There can be tremors, twitchings, and convulsions. Then there is depression of ventilation, which we often see in COPD patients, where they are giving oxygen to face mask or very high oxygen levels and reducing the respiratory drive of the patient, and we see depression in ventilation. Then absorption atelectasis, when we are giving oxygen at very high flow rates or very high oxygen to the patient, the diffusion of the oxygen is much faster than the alveoli getting filled from the oxygen. So there can be collapse of alveoli leading to absorption atelectasis. So this is just a message that like we are running around with Wi-Fi stations, if the trees had Wi-Fi, we would plant them more. So unfortunately the trees only deliver oxygen. Thank you.
Thank you.
So these are one or two questions I'll ask you. What is the lowest percentage of inspired air is delivered by?
And nasal.
Easy question. So in a patient on oxygen therapy who is known to be at risk of hypercapnic respiratory failure, the following investigations or procedures is most important.
Full and function test.
Okay.
Yep.
So in general, ABG is the most important.
Yes, ma'am.
So in general, once the target oxygen saturations have been achieved, the oxygen therapy should be
Increase.
C. Reviewed regularly and decreased as tolerable.
Good.